Hi, everyone. Welcome, one and all, to Plan A Studio on Riverside. I am Nathan Boniso. I'm the co-founder of Plan A. We are the host of the event. We're a carbon management software. And I am very, very happy to welcome on stage multiple experts that will be able to fuel a conversation made by sustainability manager and for sustainability. So this is going to be a 1 hour session. We are welcoming some people that will be able to ask questions. This is a bit of a new format for a conversation. The people, the guests that we have today have been selected, and we're hoping that you can bring your own piece to the conversation. So welcome to those who are in the audience who are joining us. If you can just add to the chat where you're calling in from and what you're interested in getting as an outcome for this conversation, we would love to get this conversation started. So thank you so much again. And for this great conversation, I am joined in particular by three great speakers. Lena Engel from TÜV Rheinland Consulting. Lena supports businesses in sustainability strategy and reporting, decarbonization, adaptation, and she has a focus on translating all of these complex topics into actionable solutions. So she's driving the transformative change, helping clients meet evolving sustainability standards. Rheinland is a very famous institution over in Germany and beyond, and we're very excited to have you. Lena, welcome.
Happy to be here. I was a bit delayed with my mic.
All good. You're here. Welcome, Lena. We're super happy to have you. Manael Perche from Humanity Group is also with us. Welcome, Manael. You drive ESG transformation at Humanity Group. You help organizations scale sustainability through strategic implementation, agile methodologies, and measurable impact initiatives. I'm really excited to get your thoughts on a strategic level and how to really, measure and back those initiatives with numbers and arguments. Welcome, Manael. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Nathan, and hello, everyone. Glad to be here.
Amazing. Last but not least, we have Mr. Giovanni Migliore from Flix. Giovanni, you're a senior manager for sustainability disclosure and decarbonization at the company Flix, and you're founder of the Association of Italian Professional Network, IPN. You have experience in ESG and sustainability from very famous companies, including UniCredit, Deloitte, Horizon. And I'm very looking forward to hearing your experience. You have been, partner of the adventure of Plan A for a little while. It's a pleasure to have you on stage today. And I am very excited to also get your insights on what it is to do ESG in these organizations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm super glad to be here.
Thank you, all of you. We will have one more minute before we jump into the questions because we do have people still streaming in. So again, for the people that have just joined, feel free to use the live stream chats where you're able to let us know where you're calling in from. Let us know what you want to learn about sustainability, about the implementation of sustainability. Even this session is based on an ebook that Plan A has published, based on the work of the three speakers that you have here and more sustainability managers. We have, as a team, gathered a number of testimonies that really try to be as down to the practice of sustainability as possible. And what we wanted to extract from these questions and these interviews is, what does sustainability actually look like in a corporate environment? And what does a team or a person that works within these spaces, what do they do on their day-to-day, and how do they break the numerous barriers that come with sustainability management? So that is the goal. If you would like to download the ebook or even access it for free in this session, my collaborators will share the link in the chat in a second. The resource is freely available for all of the participants of this seminar. So feel free to take this, to get the link and use it, to dive a little bit deeper into the different experiences that being a sustainability manager represents. Is no further ado, I would love to jump in. We have, a tall order. So as we explain in the description of the events, everyone has a chance to ask the question. Please ask them in the chat. There will be some way to maybe intervene in this. We will go through the question as many as possible, as many as we can, in the second part of this conversation. So feel free to really fire the questions that we will do our best to answer them. We will do our best to make it a solution driven space. But first, I would really like to open with some problems. We all know that sustainability is not necessarily the easiest space. There's a lot of convincing that goes with it. There's a lot of persuading, a lot of data challenges that come with it. So there are numerous problems and hoops to pass in order to get to a credible decarbonization strategy. And I'd love to maybe start with you, Lena. You have been working both internally and externally on different aspects of sustainability. Would you be able to share with us some challenge that maybe you have faced recently or not so recently, and some common patterns maybe that you even identified?
Yeah, of course. I've seen some challenges in the chat already too, which I am very curious to discuss as well. I mean, I have to address the obvious, I think, because recently sustainability has lost a bit of momentum, I'd say. There are multiple crises going on, and companies face different kinds of challenges. I think Mark mentioned this in the chat already, how to motivate people and how to really get things going for us as a community as well as something that I'm thinking about a lot in recent times, because that's, I think, a challenge we have to address, the obvious challenge at the moment. Yet, when it comes to some hands-on operative challenges, I'd say a common structure I see in our projects and within the consultancy space is good governance, good processes, and also communication between different stakeholders that don't necessarily have sustainability on their agenda. And I think that's challenge enough to convince everybody to move forward together within a project.
Thank you so much. That's something that we also feel a lot. And there's a notion of urgency, a back and forth, in the feeling of urgency. Maybe Manel, you have some ideas maybe around also this idea of bringing urgency, bringing speed of execution to these sustainability challenges. Is this something that you also see over on your neck of the woods?
Yeah, thank you for that, Nathan. Indeed, we are in the VUCA world. So for the ones who don't know what is a VUCA world, it's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And which means that what was true yesterday may not be true today. And the solutions that we could answer and that would fix the problem of yesterday may not be the case today or tomorrow. So as you've been mentioning, there is a really fast need to adapt to a continuous changing environment. And if we come back to economy or school, depends on what you like the most. You may remember about the Kondratiev circles. Kondratiev's cycles were about 150 years, whereas today it's not more than a few years. So one of the main challenge for companies today is to adapt to this content change and to make sure that ESG is a lever for sustainability and growth rather than only a cost. And unfortunately, they see it as a checklist to be completed rather than a lever for sustainability and growth for the company. This is, to me, one of the main challenges we should face today.
Absolutely. As we started, the convincing, the persuading, or a mixture of both is already a large part of the job, right, of sustainability manager. And Giovanni, I'm turning to you because you're in the weeds, of executing a strategy within quite a complex supply chain and quite a complex organization. I'm really curious to hear your perspective on these two opening points. Is this something that resonates on your level, and what has been your maybe your experience at trying to convince and securing some of the buy-ins?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I mean, of course, like you already got the main points of the discussion here, and I think Manel used a term which is really triggering me. It's checklist, and like I think what's really the core of the discussion is like, how do we move from a just compliance-based perspective to a real strategic actions that can bring actually value added. And like, I don't want to touch like political arguments, but like what we are seeing at European level with all this regulation impacting sustainability reporting, I think that yes, like the momentum of ESG is now not on the hype. But if we look back with CSRD, when they were like the politicians as well were pushing a lot on sustainability. In the end, the results was that they created, in my view, with CSRD, like an exercise that in the end is bringing too much complexity for business and corporates. So I think that our role as sustainability professional is actually to look at that and to prioritize and understand where we can really bring value with sustainability. Because we need to shift the message. Sustainability should not be seen as a burden for companies, just as something like a checklist, as Manel was saying. But we need to express sustainability as a value creator for companies. And this will, of course, bring value added for all the stakeholders, like communities, nature, in the end. And like when it comes to this regulation and all the impacts that you are probably already aware of in terms of data requirements and so on, that are moving the energy of the companies from tangible actions to just compliance exercise. I think that this is also then reflected in like companies need to understand where they can really have controls and levers to decarbonize, for example, when it comes to decarbonization. So this is the role that we need to play as sustainability professional, identify this hotspot, identify actions that we can implement, and share these information with our leaders in order to actually promptly address all these issues.
Thank you very much, Giovanni, for this input. Can I just ask, can you all check that you are muted? We have a lot of people on the conversation and I am muting some of you. Sorry if I'm being a bit of a dictator here. I cannot unmute, so no worries. Feel free to ask your question in the chat and we'll happy to invite you in. But just for the running of the conversation, please make sure that you are all muted. Thank you so much to everyone. Giovanni, I would like to just come back to what you said, because you mentioned something really that I find is really fundamental in our conversation also with our clients, is a bit this ebb and flow of regulations, but also of urgency we just mentioned. So there is, in a way, a moving target, a moving picture that sustainability and ESG manager need to work with. We have seen a movement towards finance team, also taking some responsibility with the environmental, social, and governance reporting. How do we change our narrative as sustainability teams? Do we need to change a little bit our software? No pun intended. Do you see that change? Maybe going back to you, Giovanni.
Yeah, thanks for the question, which is actually really interesting. So yeah, I mean, definitely I've seen it already, like in my previous job experience. I've seen it also like in Flix. Like there is this shift, the shift to like integrating sustainability reporting into financial reporting. It comes as natural with CSRD, which is actually asking companies to work on a management report, which includes both sustainability and financial. Let me be honest, like in terms of readiness, I don't think that in terms of data flow, sustainability data are so accurate as per financial economic ones. But I think that we can integrate the processes and create synergies in doing this, also to enhance the consistency of the sustainability data. Then when it comes to like how to shift a bit the narrative, I think this is really another crucial point, but it's nothing new. In the end, that's like even in the past sustainability, when the company started working on sustainability, when it was not mandatory, I think that they felt it okay as a, let's say, corporate must do, but also they felt the reputational enhancement that was driven by implementing sustainability initiatives. So I think that it's good to actually look at sustainability initiatives from a more financial perspective. How can we do that? I think that we also need to be pragmatic here as a sustainability professional, and like it's plenty of like incentives in the market on energy efficiency initiatives out there. So it's plenty of partners that can support us in achieving our goals. In Flix, we do that. Like we engage with the original equipment manufacturer, for example. So the ones who built the puzzles to understand what can we do together, in order to achieve our decarbonization goal. But also, I think what's important is to flag that there is already a trajectory at European level in particular, but globally, that we need to work on this, even if there are some delays and so on. And the same like requests, the same requirements are coming from regulators, are coming from investors. So we cannot just hide. It's already there. We just need to bring all these like small pieces, prepare maybe like business cases in the end, and yeah, like understand where can we bring our impacts, and yeah, like keep believing in what we do.
Thank you so much, Giovanni. And I'm sure some of the points that you said resonate. I see a few fellow sustainability team members in the call. And I'm sure the point about the data maturity and how do you maintain a certain, trajectory, to use your words, whilst also remaining modern and adaptable to these new topics or these new questions. Manuel, thinking of something that we have discussed also backstage, I'm curious to understand how do you help on a strategic level to manage these long terms, these short term priorities, maybe these different concepts around sustainability. The top management doesn't maybe have the same ideas in terms of outcomes from these projects. Do you have some more stories around how to shape this in a digestible strategy and something that will generate the sign off and the buy-in from the teams?
That's a very good question. And when we talk about agile transformation, we talk about organizational, cultural, but also technological transfer. And we can only improve what we measure. So first thing is to make sure that we have the right data. Technology can, of course, be a lever to do so, as Giovanni, you've been mentioning just before. But I truly think that in order to prioritize and take the decisions in the right way, we need progressively to break the silos. Breaking the silos is not about making the cooperation exploding. It is about creating catalysts for cooperation between the different boards of directors, how to work together, how to get out of our comfort zone, how to make sure that the objectives are shared, so that the decision making is not the responsibility of one or two teams, but it's a common responsibility for the company. So how to be more data oriented and to share objectives. But now, Nathan, I'm going to share a little story with you and with the attendees, if you agree. I was with a client a few days ago, and she have been mentioning the fact that she was at an executive committee, and fortunately, in the executive committee, the first 4 minutes have been dedicated to the CFO telling, okay, as from tomorrow, we will cut the training managers plan for the year. We will cut the sustainability initiatives, and we will make sure that we will only focus on the business. As from today, which is not essential, we cut it. So I was reflecting about this emotional reaction that my client had. She was feeling alone. She was feeling unempowered, and she didn't know how to react toward that reaction from the CFO. And at the end of the conversation, we came to the conclusion that maybe the question she could ask to this CFO calmly is burning the leaves, or are you cutting the roots of the company? When it comes to a strategic choice, which is on the short term or the long term, we need to ask ourselves the question, are we acting on the leaves of the tree, or are we cutting the roots? And when it comes to the resilience of a company, when it comes to the adaptation to change, the more you will cut the roots, the hardest it's going to be for the company to sustain on the long term, because they will lose market shares. Maybe the employees will lose faith in their company and the culture. They will lose call for tenders. Well, actually, at the very medium term, they're going to lack the culture that they were building over the past few years. So, of course, I could give some methodologies and tools related to Agile, like the Moscow prioritization. So it's definitely not about Moscow or Russia. It's Moscow prioritization. What is a must-have, what is a should-have, what is a could-have, and what is a won't-have during this year. This is a little tips and tricks that I can share. But I really would like each one of us to ask ourselves and to our teams, okay, in each decision we make, are we cutting the leaves and the roots for tomorrow?
That's such a nice quote that I will be stealing, Manael, if that's okay with you. also must have resonated, I think, with a lot of sustainability managers out there on the call. I just want to remind you that feel free to ask some questions in the chats. We are here to discuss. It's not just me asking the questions, and I would be delighted to also hear your comments, because as a sustainability manager of planning myself, I feel a lot of the pains as well, and a lot of the prioritization dilemma that we are, I think, all experiencing in 2025, and having some ways of both making the selection ourselves, right, as sustainability manager, deciding what is the most material changes that we can bring to a company, and at the same time responding to the challenges and the budgetary limitation and all of the changes that we are undergoing. It's part of the job, in my experience, and it does require some navigational skills. I'd like to turn to Lena, who also maybe has a couple of stories, and in the context of again prioritizing, we talk about mitigation, we talk about adaptation. Lena, I know that you have been working with many companies in making sure that these companies live up to what it is to be a business in 2025. So how do you maybe do some adaptation for your business? How do you talk to businesses about this, or your teams, and how do you make it make sense? What are your suggestions maybe here on this space?
Yeah, that's a great question. Can I just add something to my colleagues' previous comments as well? Because I agree with them, but in some sense, I just might have to add one point, because I've been doing this for 11 years or 12 years already. And way back when, where there was no regulation, we used to push for the business case of sustainability. And I'm struggling with that concept, to be honest, because sustainability is so much more than that. We leave the normative side out of the equation so often. And I think that is exactly what happens when a manager or a CEO says, like, let's just cut everything out. And you somehow, as a sustainability consultant in that moment, you feel like you haven't managed to integrate sustainability where it should be. And in the past couple of years, we've been focusing on compliance. And I think we as a community sort of forgot to push that side of sustainability, that normative discourse that is really needed to get there in the end. And now I see a similar thing happening with the business case. And yes, there are gains to be made, and short-term wins convince stakeholders. But long-term goals are so crucial for sustainability. And I just wanted to add that, because I think we have to keep that in mind, especially as a community that is impact driven and motivated to change business as it is. And now coming back to your question. So adaptation, I feel like, I don't know, maybe some of the people in here can share how it is in other countries, but I feel like in Germany in particular, we don't really talk a lot about adaptation and the necessity to make changes to manage risks as a business, as we do in other areas like financial risks as well. And somehow they talk about a Jahrhundert event, which is like a once in 100 years events. And we all know climate change is there and we need to adapt. So I think its first step would be drive the discourse, get it out there, talk about it at every event you can. And then secondly, when I talk to clients specifically, I remind them, well, actually in that case, it's about financials. You get in about financials, like you talk about physical risks, you name different production sites where they could like lose money. That's like the first step. And then you try to go into the normative discussion about how to get there in their sustainability strategy as well.
There's a lot to unpack in all of these points. And what I was always reflective about in a way, particularly in the context of CSRD as well, is the point of the regulation is not necessarily to just have a regulation. It's designed for businesses to understand their materialities and how they are exposed and how they are harming also the environment. This whole exercise is made in order for businesses to be better adapted. There is this this in my mind, kind of rejoining of these different themes. Lena, to your point about the business case and going beyond the business case is not just a cost cutting exercise, which, we're being asked a lot to prove the point or the ROI, but also something to be prepared on a longer time scale and on a more practical as well, maybe time scale. So thank you very much for these points. I have to give democratically also a right to Manel and Giovanni. Would you like to comment on this? Maybe dichotomy or doubles objectives that we have been exposed to as sustainability teams.
I deeply agree with Lena. My expertise lies in business transformation and how to scale a company or how to trigger innovation in big corporates. But today, companies are about learning to navigate between performance and sustainability. So they indeed need to ingrain and trigger and empower all the levels of the organizations in stopping claiming and talking about change, but about being the change they want to see. Most of us in the ESG are very good in strategy or project management or maybe niche expertise when it comes to sustainability. However, when it comes to the ability to change, it's a lot about human. And as we are all humans, we need to identify what are going to be the triggers within the board of directors, within the managers, within the ones who have the power to make decisions. Are they motivated by intrinsic motivators or extrinsic motivators? How can we learn together to navigate with what is important to them so that we can trigger these mental shifts so that they can be the best ambassador of the ESG strategy after that? And of course, we will always need some experts in sustainability or social impact within the company when it comes to data management or mobility or decarbonization. But here, what I truly think is that we should be open to these methodologies to make sure that we shift from a peripheral approach of ESG to an integrated one, that HR, marketing, finance, as you've been mentioning, Giovanni, but also operation and IT do have ESG objectives that are tangible, measurables, achievable in another way. I will be really happy the day when ESG department will not exist anymore, because it will mean that actually it is shared by everyone, every department in the company.
Very interesting perspective, Manuel. Thank you. Giovanni, did you want to add some thoughts on this point?
Very quickly, but again, I fully agree with Lena, about the need for pushing even farther than a standard business case, and Manel about the integration of sustainability. This is really into different departments. This is really what I've always had in mind. So to expect in the future that this sustainability professional, sustainability department is spread across the different departments. Though this may imply that maybe I'll no longer have a job as a sustainability professional. But jokes aside, I think that this is a bit the future, but it really also depends on the stage that the company, the corporate are facing actually in that moment. Because there are, of course, mature, pretty large corporates where this is already happening. They have budget, they can anticipate the risks, they can already adapt, they can already have adaptation solution. They can already quantify the risk, rely on software, on sources, on professionals helping them. But when it comes to actually smaller companies, which are still struggling maybe with profits and cost, so pure economic logics, which in the end will make them still be alive or just disappear from the market, then again, I think that we need to be pragmatic and think what can we bring in terms of value from any sustainability initiatives. And I think that these kind of issues need to be addressed really at global level. We know that for net zero climate change pledges, the way they are built, they work only if everyone does, its step in the end. So everyone needs to already have targets and achieve their goals. But here, I think that governments, institutions must do more and more to incentivize even smaller players, to achieve their goals, to implement initiatives that in the end are, I will not say cost positive, positive from an economic standpoint, but at least equal to running business as usual. So this is really this really actually triggers, in my view, the importance of having an ecosystem which is already working toward the same direction and where all the partners are working towards the same direction. Because if we expect that corporates, just because we come to the leaders and say, hey, like the planet is gonna be burned in few years, and they will just say, okay, let's put more money on it, I think this is not sufficient. Even if from a, let's say, pure aspirational standpoint is absolutely valid. Yeah,
absolutely. The almost disconnect between the goal and the practicality of the objective is the gap that we are expected to fill. I love what you said about the network effect and the partner, the importance of partner. And I think companies, like Flix and like other businesses that reach a certain scale are a very important reason for the general transition to sustainability or even to certain standards of production or certifications. Anyone is welcome to share their experience here, but we find that this flywheel effect and these expectations put on the supplier through a code of conduct or through a selection process is a very powerful lever towards sustainability. Do you also have some initiatives in that direction?
Is for me the question, right?
Yeah, I mean, you are still pinned, so I will invite
yeah.
you to go ahead.
So absolutely, and I think like this is also triggered me, and another point I wanted to flag, like regarding the prioritization, because sometimes like companies also, again, like due to maybe regulatory reporting side, compliance stuff, they need to focus on like so many data points and so on, and they maybe lose a bit the radar about where they can bring the value. So in the Flix case, I think it's pretty peculiar. So our main impact in terms of emissions is arising from our fleet, of course. But since like for most of our buses are actually owned by our bus partners, not directly.
Can you tell maybe just in one word what Flix does for the audience?
Flix is basically providing long distance transport across the globe, mainly in Europe, but also in US, Turkey, and so on. And like the business model of Flix, the way it works is like most of the buses of our fleet are not belonging to us, but they are still owned by the bus partner which we cooperate with. So this, from a pure and very practical aspect, makes us counting the emission arising from the fleet in like the scope 3. So it's like an indirect emissions that we are generating. But even if it's part of our value chain, like the downstream, let's say, part of the value chain, then we have lever and we have the accountability to reduce this. So that's why actually then we set to decarbonize our fleet, short-term targets by 2032, validated by SBTi. And how do we do that? Again, it comes to ecosystems, it comes to partnerships, because we don't have like a rule like asking to the bus partner, hey, like you need to put this bus on. But what's important here is to engage with the business partner, engage with the OEM, again, original equipment manufacturer, to understand, okay, what kind of technologies we can implement, how much this will cost in the future. And I think our case is really specific, because in this way we are acting as a facilitator in this green transition. And even though, again, like this is part of our scope 3, this is part of our value chain, we are there being accountable for that. And I think it's far more important that we keep doing this rather than focusing on, for example, estimating the energy consumption in small shops, small agencies that may be required, by the regulator. That's why I was so keen to show the importance of prioritizing and understanding where do you have the lever.
Thank you so much, Giovanni. This is a very insightful point. I would love to invite Lena to maybe comment, on this execution and maybe to continue the conversation, some of the successful rituals or some of the successful ways that you actually implement, this, I'm going to call it scaling by abuse of language, but how do you really get the machine going? And how do you grow that machine internally? What are some of the things that you can do internally or with your partners? Do you have some suggestions here?
Yeah, maybe to add to Giovanni's points, I fully agree. Partnering with all of your suppliers is very important. also other partners, of course, that can provide services like software, for example. But maybe just to add on that, one thing that is really important in our project is training, because often suppliers are globally spread and they have different levels of knowledge of sustainability issues. And that can be a huge hurdle, because they're suddenly being asked to deliver something they don't necessarily understand in detail. And this is something, we do a lot in our consulting work, because we're a global company and we have auditors all over the world. And so in that way, I'm really lucky, because people speak the local language and can train people on site. And I think that's important to have also these. Manel mentioned this earlier. It's also about cultural issues. How do humans interact? And if you can really go to that level and train locally in the same language, that helps the process a lot and makes it way more efficient. Regarding your questions on rituals, I think that sort of goes in the same direction, because for me, it's staying curious and having exchanges like this one today, sharing knowledge and being open about challenges in sustainability and give room for that, to talk to peers and to stakeholders and whomever and spread the word. I think that's the best ritual you can have. And I think we as a community are in that sense also lucky, because we're also so driven. And I feel like every sustainability manager I meet is such an avid learner, because in their role, they have so many changes all the time, let alone the past 5 years. They did a deep dive in regulation, and now they have this turnaround. So there's so much that person that adapts so easily in that context of the VUCA or BANI world, if you will. So they should lead the transformation as such.
The charge, absolutely. And that's a hopeful comment that you make, Lena, for us. And I almost considering a must-have in the job description of a sustainability manager, this curiosity that you mentioned, both in terms of regulatory landscape and all of the reporting frameworks that you need to know, but also from a tooling, a technical perspective, staying aware of the new practices and the best practices that keep on becoming better over time, because the subject is evolving so fast. So this is also something that we have really tapped into and try to encourage. Thank you for your words on this event. And this event is really designed to build this space for conversation. We have found that it is sometimes very hard for sustainability teams to discuss sometimes where it doesn't work so well, because there's so much at stake and such a moral almost command to actually be successful, that it can sometimes feel like, walking a tightrope without a safety net, because you cannot really make the mistake, but you also need the mistake to become incremental. And this is a wink to you, Manel, on the incremental approach and how do you step by step create a system that is able to solve for these complexities. So Manel, I'd just love to give you spontaneously a final comment, and then I would love to engage with the chat, who has already left many interesting comments. You will be able to unmute. If you don't want to unmute, don't worry, I'm also here to read through the question and the comments. But after your answer, Manel, I would love to move to the final stage where each of you is able to also comment and add your thoughts. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Nathan. And indeed, when it comes to scale the initiative on sustainability to be ingrained in the day-to-day practices, it is all about the methodology. Well, to me, in the way I've been doing it at Humanity over the past 10 years and at the client's place, which are mostly corporates from the corporate world, it has been about methodology. How to think big, but to act small. First step is really about how to make an assessment. An assessment in sustainable agile is about measuring the reluctancy to change and understanding the why. Is it about a lack of interest? Is it about a lack of vision, of ambition, of mission? Maybe the weight of the hierarchy. It can be also a lack of innovation. Well, you have plenty of reasons why there is a reluctancy to the change or the adaptation and adoption for sustainable practices. This is definitely one of the first steps to me. and professionals are able to do it. And after the assessment, it is about the roadmap, how to think big and to act small, integrate ESG KPIs and objectives in a few early birds projects where people are kind of early adopters, which means open to integrate ESG KPI objectives in their day-to-day practices. Show the quick wins, make it resonate, make it shine, show how it can be a lever for transformation, interest, sense within the company. And then progressively, in an iterative, incremental approach, scale it to other teams or other companies. I also relate to Lena and maybe Giovanni comments. It is about training. Of course, the thing is to raise awareness so that they understand the why of the transformation. If they don't understand why, they will submit to the transfer or they will reject it. And when it comes to change, many people are fearing the change, so they reject it. So first thing is about raising awareness. Of course, training and providing the means, the space and the tools to fail fast and succeed faster. This is about the agile methodology, but unfortunately, in 2025, many companies do believe that agile is freestyle, whereas it's most of all a lot of methodology, rigor, and consistency to think collectively and to commit toward also performance and sustainability. I hope I answered the question or that I gave some tips and tricks. Just let me know, Nathan, if it's convenient to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Manel. I just want to, there's a lot of really cool, interesting comments, and I want to give us a chance to really go through them. And maybe starting, just bouncing on this, Rita, sorry if I mispronounce your name, feel free to unmute. You mentioned a great point in modelizing, right? Like the scenarios and how do you actually create some visibility over what you plan to do and show some maybe preliminary results. Would you care to elaborate?
Yeah, sure. And it's Gita. Hi everyone. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Gita.
Yeah, my comment was because I actually used to work in a bank for many years in regulatory reporting, and I was in a team where we were conducting sort of like stress scenarios, and climate risk was one of them. And actually, a lot of financial institutions not just equipped with the methodology how to assess a climate risk on their whole business portfolio, but they have to. It's a regulatory requirement already. But in comparison to corporates, so non-financial institutions, when I changed to sustainability, I realized that the finance departments here are just really not on that level of being able to actually look at a forecast view of whatever change is happening, not just climate or sustainability related, but other impacts, how to see what will be the actual financial impact. And I think my challenge is that it's really hard to grasp what can go wrong if really move towards the forecasted climate change and the temperature rise, increase, sort of those things. Like it's really hard to actually put a number on it. And I think, it would be really great if we have those tools, because CSRD asks for it and doesn't say how to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your point. Just a shameless plug-in for Plan A. We are working and we have released a modelization tool with, and the goal, just to give you some context, is really to combine. You mentioned it in your comments. The financials with the non-financial. How do these two speak together, and how do we merge in a way? Should we merge these KPIs? And thank you so much for your point. I want to jump in. For me, it's related to Carrie's point regarding decarbonization and sustainability targets. Is it best to approach the management with realistic targets or ambitious targets, which demonstrate a high ambition level for the company, but perhaps won't be met? Carrie, if you would care to unmute, if you would like to unmute, and then I think we will have some comments to answer these two points.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Carrie. We're still working, we're still quite at the beginning of our sustainability journey, and it's still then a discussion that we have internally whether we should set a target that we perhaps know that we can't reach, especially for scope 3, but because we want to set this high level of ambition that the company works towards, or whether we should be more realistic and set a less ambitious target that perhaps isn't so motivating for everyone in the company. And it would be really interesting to know, your opinions on this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the question. And I'll just kick us off. And I would love for Manel, Lena, and Giovanni to bring some insights as well. We have always try to meet the objectives. And so you are stuck between a rock and a hard place if you work in a big business, minus 42% Paris target, and the means that you have to actually achieve this. And so I think as a sustainability team, it's really important for the stakeholders you work with to understand this disconnect and this really big gap that you need to fill, and provide the timeline. For me, the timeline question, and in climate science, as you know, is of the essence. What can you do this year, in 5 years, in 10 years, and so on? And where do you want to take this team or this company? This is a very short answer. We're short on time. Giovanni, Lena, Manael, would you like to take the stage, because this might be something familiar to some of you?
Yeah, I'd like to
I may
comment on
comment.
Peter's point.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Giovanni.
Lena,
Now
you
go
got
ahead,
it.
Lena. Go ahead.
Sorry, I should have distributed better. Lena, you got it.
Yeah, I think you're right. The financial industry has these tools and insurance as well. We've been doing a lot of climate risk analysis recently and looking at physical as well as transitional risks. It's a hard task, but there are processes and also software solutions out there. And there's a lot of really good work going on at different universities. I think it is possible. I think the harder question is to measure the impact of your sustainability goals and targets, to really go into that space where you can say like, yeah, and we achieved this in a positive way. Because the financial aspect of, for example, having flooding and losing production days, etc., these are all geodata, and then you just run the scenarios. That's feasible, and lots of good companies do it. I think the second part is the harder one. And I know that Plan A is working on that.
For sure. Absolutely. Manel, Giovanni, would you like to add something before I have the one last topic about communication, teams, and motivation, but feel free to maybe chime in on this one.
Maybe I will go, Manuel, if you don't mind, just because I really feel this question as relevant, and my answer is pretty strong. Let's say I will definitely refrain from setting ambitious target which in a way you are already aware you're not gonna achieve. Mainly because I think that transparency is important here. Towards your stakeholders, your customers. So probably, I mean, if I will be your customer, I will mainly appreciate whether you are pretty frank and say, okay, this is what we can do right now. This is what we can do so far. Maybe it's not so ambitious. We can look for doing more in future. Let's see. But please, I will refrain from setting anything ambitious, which is not backed up by actually real decarbonization plans. And there are also many greenwashing allegations coming in to corporates who in the last 5 to 3 years have set targets, net zero targets, huge commitment, huge declaration, but in the end they were not backing their targets with substantial actions and criteria. This is what I wanted to provide.
I would like to comment on what Carla mentioned, and also Mark. Thank you so much for your comments from Munich. So how do you motivate customers, shareholders to invest in the longer term sustainable solutions when they are more short term and ROI oriented? This is a topic we've covered. And I'd just like to tie it in with a comment from Carla, which is about the company organization around sustainability. We've started answering, in an ideal world, there is no ESG team, but how does the team should look like? Who should they report to? So how do you build a team that is able to also motivate external stakeholders? And maybe over to you, Manal, to give you the space to comment on these two aspects that you have mentioned.
Should I begin?
Yes, we're ready.
Or I would be curious to hear the volunteers if they would like to jump on the field so that we can discuss and exchange.
Is there anyone who would like to unmute? Maybe Carla or Mark or anyone else? Yeah. Thank you so much. I just want to take the final minute to bring us back together. And there is a lot of communication work on Plan A, but feel free to get in touch, also with us, with the speakers, with myself. We left my email in the chat. We would love to continue the conversation commercially, but also non-commercially and informally. This event was really the first of what we hope to be a bigger community of best practices amongst ourselves. So stay tuned for the next edition, which we are preparing. There will be a second volume of the ebook that we have created. There will be a second edition of this chat. We will be sending right after this this exchange a feedback form or a feedback email for you. Please, it would do wonders for us to understand what you've liked about this session, what you didn't like about this session, how can we improve, and how can we get even more great sustainability and finance manager to participate in this conversation. I'm sorry if we weren't able to cover all of the different questions and the different points. We hope that you got some value from this exchange, and we are looking forward to seeing you at subsequent events. Last but not least, again, Giovanni, Lena, Manael, I want to thank you personally for being part of this conversation. I have learned a lot. I'm sure the audience has also learned a lot from your interventions. And thank you again on behalf of Plan A and on behalf of the community to take the time to share some of your secret recipes.
Thank you, Juan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the day, and see you at the back to school era for the next session. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.